Ladies and boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're going to be talking about the crypto markets, right? We're going to go into the details of what is happening, right? A lot of crazy things are obviously happening with the world, as we know, with the whole war and the potential escalation. Now, I still believe everything will be fine ultimately at the end of the day, because no one truly deep down wants, everything to go to crap, right? Like, including like when we talk about this whole world, right? That is just the truth. Plus, there's been tensions around the world before multiple times. Yes, there has been two world wars, but here's the deal. I believe, the next time there will be one, it's going to practically be the end. And like I said, I believe the people in power, in charge, they have more plans to come. They have more plans. So yeah, ultimately, I do believe this thing will blow over. And I am still very pro crypto. And I still think, there's a long way to go. But all that aside, right, all war aside, let's just dive into the technical analysis. But let's go back for a second, okay? Because things are getting interesting. So we know that global liquidity was following, Bitcoin was following global liquidity perfectly, 91-day delay, right? When we take global liquidity, we can see go from here to here, perfect 91 days. And every time there was some type of top, right? Some type of top, the next time there was a liquidity sweep, right? We would fake out and slam lower, right? And then the same thing happened down here. 91 days was the bottom, but guess what, right? Bottom here, this was technically the bottom 91 days, but then we faked out and then went back straight up. Okay, following, good. So, everything was looking solid, right? If we remove the drawings just so it's easier, we can see that in terms of points, there's, this bottom here, but then when we move the mouse, there's 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, 4 point, 5 point, 6 point, 7 point, right? There were 7 points. So we can see, right? Week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It was literally perfect. It was literally perfect, right? We had 7 points of going us going up, and then the 1 point that we had to go down went down. So everything was literally on track. We were literally perfect from the global liquidity top to the global liquidity bottom, and all the micro moves in between were literally perfect to the T up until this point down here. We knew, right, this candle over here was going to be a sell-off. And when we start to go higher and higher with global liquidity, we said that, hey, it's going to manipulate the first time around. It's going to lie. It's going to manipulate that it wants to go down, right? It swept. Perfect. But then things really started to slow down and become very annoying, right? Even when we were here pumping, during the fake out week, we said, this is not going to go higher, it's going to go lower. Exactly what happened. And then Friday was great recovery, Saturday. And to be honest, I really wanted more from Sunday. But then, you know what? We're like, okay, well, maybe things aren't going to be perfect 100%, but we still expected Bitcoin to be at around 120,000 mid-June, according to global liquidity, when we lined everything up, right? When we lined up global liquidity perfectly with the tops, with the bottoms, right? We expected around 120K Bitcoin by mid-June. Well, it's practically mid-June and we're still not there. So what happened, right? Well, in terms of technical analysis, right, Sunday ended pretty weak. Monday was fantastic. Tuesday was okay, but then we had a big sell-off. Now, here's also when things start to shift with war tensions, right? Somewhere around this timeline, the Tuesday, Wednesday timeline, there was already tensions of war. And then the Thursday and Friday was things were already breaking out last week, right? That is just how it was. And then we can see ever since then, things have been slowly kind of just going up, but nothing too crazy. We can see that we have had a big Monday rejection, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is over, right? We see this price action over here. It was fairly messy, but then it just shot up and had very high momentum and went from practically, let's just say 103,000 up to 112,000 in a couple of days, even at some points being roughly at 101,000 and a half. And if you go even further, below 101, right? Same thing with this very, very messy price action, goes up, comes back down. Everyone thinks it's over. No, we just slam up again. So we can see, and this is not the first time, price action has been messy, right? We can see back in January of 2024, right? It looked very, very bad and kind of like whatever for 3 weeks. Yes, even back at the channel when we did make videos and I did start to post on Twitter, I did believe this was a fake out, right? This was just a imbalance fill. It took out liquidity and we were expecting to go up higher. But still for that whole week and the week after that, it was still kind of like, well, I'm starting to doubt myself just a little bit because I don't like the way the candles are printing. So we can see, right? We also have messy price action over here. The same way we kind of had over here. That's why I said in my other video, I was like, well, there's only going to be 2 possibilities. But the difference in context was that, listen, we were here already selling off heavily in global liquidity. Over here, everything was rising and we believe this was just manipulation. Now, the context is, of course, there's war and stuff, but ultimately, I do think things will still end very, very nice. We can see at the end of the day, we are still printing higher and higher lows when it comes to daily candles, right? When it comes to the lower or the higher highs and the higher lows, right? We have this low here and we have this higher low here. When we go to something like the 4-hour, we can see we have this point here. We have this point here. We can see we have this point here, this point here. And until we start closing below, $105,000, let's say, I'm still going to be bullish, right? Even if we drop below here, go back here, as long as we still kind of close above 105K, I still believe we can be bullish. Something that could be happening right now is that we can be fundamentally just kind of going like this, like this, like this, like this. And it looks kind of funny, but this is how things usually break out when they're ready to break out, because they'll have some type of top, right? And then the bottoms consistently get higher and higher and higher and higher and higher and higher and higher until eventually it just kind of goes boom, 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 and then just explodes, right? So I'm still very, very bullish. I still think, in the short term, we could definitely be seeing some type of sell-off. If there's the micro moves, we could bounce off this 15-minute candle right over here, right? Bounce off, boom, go up higher. But obviously, we'll have to monitor it. In terms of the slightly higher time frame, we could very well be coming back to retest a little bit lower, right? Consolidate a little bit and then shoot up. Ultimately, I'm still very, very bullish on crypto. Obviously, if things really go to like really bad with the world, then obviously, you can't expect things to really pump. But ultimately, at the end of the day, like I said, I'm still very optimistic on the markets and just everything turning out for the better. But that is, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.